Welcome to the Positively No Gambling podcast, the pro football show that is definitely not about betting. My name is Glenn Fraser. It is Saturday, August 9th, and this is the 2025 team preview for the Dallas Cowboys, America's team. Let's dig in. All right. Format. The two big questions from the start of the offseason we'll kick off with. We'll then recap 2024, preview 2025, look at some trends, stats, and early against the spread plays. Conclude on how we think the team has addressed those two big questions before giving our preliminary over-under season total pick. The final over-unders will be part of the conference previews right before the season kicks off. Two big questions for this team really are, can they return to form and get back to the playoffs? And did they improve the run game? There's other question marks, but to me, those are the two big ones. 2024 was a rough season that ended up causing Mike McCarthy his job, and they lost Dak Prescott, lost a bunch of tough games. But honestly, they finished 7-10. Wasn't a complete implosion. It's good for third in the NFC East. They missed the playoffs. They never really had a shot, but maybe an outside shot at the playoffs, but ended up missing it. After a decent start with some good wins at 3-2, they ended up finishing 4-8 after Dak got hurt. 3-6 against playoff teams. Tough schedule, but not impossible. Some bad luck, but nothing overwhelming. They technically overachieved if you compare the metrics. They were exactly 501 score games, and they were able to salvage this season. But considering the expectations that they're the Cowboys, it was a big disappointment. Looking at the 2025 offense, a bunch changed, especially in the running back room. So let's focus on that. Now, in terms of what they lost quickly, lose Brandon Cooks, who goes back to New Orleans, Chume Adoga, tackle. Rico Dowdle went to Carolina. Really nothing of note. They've kept or have built on the strength of this team, which is the pass catchers and the offensive line. We'll get into that in a second. In terms of additions, it was very clear that CeeDee Lamb was the only receiver on this team, and they addressed that by acquiring George Pickens. It's risky, character issues, everything that we know has sort of plagued George Pickens, but a pretty good spot to be in, which is the clear number two now behind CeeDee Lamb. So this works out. This could make both Lamb and Pickens and Dak and all Cowboy fans pretty happy. Uh, Other additions, they went guard in the draft to shore up a offensive line that obviously has been their strength the past 10 years, but over the past season started to take a bit of a step back. So I like that pick to add in a solid potential 10-year starter in Tyler Booker. Now let's talk running backs. They added Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders in free agency and Jaden Blue and Phil Mafah in the draft. So this is an entirely new running backs room. I gotta say, I am not in, these are not inspiring additions. Javonte Williams is not a dynamic running back. Neither is Miles Sanders. But when you compare to what it was last season, it's probably an improved running backs room, but not enough to make them a top five, top 10 running team. Blue chips, Tyler Smith, one of the guards, is a dynamic, excellent long-term guard, and CeeDee Lamb is CeeDee Lamb. He's a elite pass catcher. George Pickens has shown flashes of brilliance, and Tyler Booker has got a good good resume coming into the league, so he has the potential to be very good very quickly. Uh, X factor is Dak, right? How does he respond to this injury? 2 years ago, he was an MVP candidate. This year, they have high expectations for him. There's really nobody make or break. This offense should get back to form with Dak under center, and be pretty dynamic, at least in the passing game. Doesn't mean they're going to win all the time, but I think that this is a very solid offense, with Dak, a potential, fantasy sleeper and not an MVP candidate, but definitely in the top third of the league in terms of quarterback play. Defense. Oh boy, a lot changed on this defense. This defense was one of the best in the league a couple of years ago, and now a couple of familiar names, but a lot of new guys, a lot of chances, a lot of swings here. In terms of what they lost, DeMarcus Lawrence went to Seattle, Chauncey Golston to the Giants, Eric Kendricks is a free agent, Jordan Lewis was sort of a disappointing nickel, for Dallas, went to Jacksonville for a bunch of money and is projected to start. When we get to the Jacksonville chapter, we'll talk about how questionable that was. So I don't think that was a big loss for Dallas. Uh, Additions. I like adding Dante Fowler from Washington. He had a lot of sacks last year. You pair him with Micah, that's a pretty nice signing that went a little bit under the radar. Jack Sanborn, a lot of people like him at the Mike linebacker spot, from Chicago. I like Donovan Eziraku in the draft. So they're definitely attempting to address edge, and they might have hit. Siobhan Revell Jr., some people like him. He was a little bit of a later pick in the draft. In terms of blue chip guys, Micah Parsons, without a doubt. Trayvon Diggs, you could put he's definitely performed highly in the past. Cornerbacks vary, year to year, so he could be looking at a much better bounce back year in 25. Malik Hooker is very good. Uh, like I said, I wanted to highlight Sanborn. A lot of people like him. Next factor comes down to the edges not named Micah Parsons. So can Fowler deliver high number of sacks? Can Eziraku live up to some of the hype that he was getting, pre-draft? And if there is a make or break on this defense, it's probably in the secondary. Can they get anything out of Trevon Revell? Can they return? Can Trayvon Diggs return back to sort of his heights? Is Malik Hooker one of the league's best safeties? Those types of questions. If they all hit in the positive, and they've got a dynamic pass rush that they've had in the past, we could be looking at a Cowboys team that is winning a bunch of games again, which gets us to the 2025 schedule. And here's where, look, it's all fun everybody loves hating on the Cowboys, but there's not much buzz with them this offseason when there kind of could be, given what they were a few years ago. And the schedule is one of the big reasons why. No getting around. It's a rough schedule. It's really tough at home, which I guess if you got to play these teams anyway. You might as well play them at home. But home to the Packers, never easy. Home to the Chiefs, I mean, come on. Home to Minnesota is tough. Chargers should be pretty good. And that's in addition to the NFC East opponents, Philly, Washington, even the Giants, even though Dallas usually plays the Giants pretty well. Uh, 10 games, even though this is not a playoff team last year, they got to play 10 games against 2024 playoff teams because they play the North in the NFC and the West in the AFC, which both had, three playoff teams each, in addition to having to play Philly and Washington a total of four times. If they are going to bounce back, they need to do a lot of damage before the bye. They need to win 6 out of 9 at worst. worst 5-4, because this stretch after the bye is brutal. You have to play back to back Philly and Kansas City. Now they're both at home, that helps. And then go to Detroit. That is just brutal, 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 brutal. Six playoff teams all in a row. Really tough. Let's look at some of the additional stats. Pythagorean, they technically overachieved, but they were only 5-5 in close games. Turnover differential, that should reverse back in their favor. They lost five additional games from 2023 to 2024. That's what you point to when you say this is a bounce back year. It's that 2023 year where they won so many games. Obviously, they were disappointed in the playoffs. They're the Cowboys, but they were a damn good team that year. This is the one where if you're a believer, you look towards. Strength of schedule was tough. It's tough again. Um, the O-line perception of this team, the reputation was probably better than the actual. Because they were not great at pass protection last year. That could, some of that was probably quarterback, but that's something to look out for. The D line is bad. There's a typo here, but great pass rush, poor run stop is what I was trying to say. They did attempt to plug that with some of the additions that they made in the interior of the D line. Uh, Having said all that, nothing jumping too much out. Depends on what you think of this team on paper. Given their brutal home schedule and the fact that they're actually not great at covering the spread on the road, I don't have any leans for the Cowboys, which is doesn't really say anything other than I can't trust their trends, and it's a very, very tough schedule. Um, they can bounce back without a doubt, and they could have one of the league's best pass rush, which when you start to think about contenders and playoffs and deep playoff runs, if you don't have a pass rush, if you don't have pass catchers, you effectively can cross a team off before the season even starts. And that's not the Cowboys. So to conclude, I think they might have addressed their concerns and they could get back to the playoffs, but I do not think that their run game is going to be nearly good enough. Um, I don't think that they've done enough to justify an over. They're over under 7.5 wins. I think they're probably between 6 to 8, missed the playoffs. Bad luck with the schedule, very tricky matchups down the stretch. I don't think the coach change does anything to move the needle. All said, though, if they could get some luck within that division, if Philly takes a step back, if Washington takes a step back, and if Dak and the defense of the Cowboys can look like they did in 23, then they match up well in the division and they do have a chance at the playoffs. I just don't think that it's going to happen. So that concludes the Cowboys, a fun team to talk about. I'm more optimistic than others. Some people think they're really going to stink. I definitely don't think that. But when you look at it, when you look at the schedule, it is brutal. And let's put it this way, I think a 5-win team is probably more likely than a 11 or 12-win team. So because of that, I'm going to have to go with the under for now. Uh, okay, so tomorrow is going to be the Denver Broncos, one of my favorite teams in terms of what they did in the offseason, what they could look like in 2025. Fun team to talk about. So we'll talk about Denver tomorrow. Thanks.